Hello and welcome to our webcast for April 14, 2017. My name is Christian Debré and this is Amy Asbrook, Director of Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet.
Hello.
Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability rights opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other ending of life practices that discriminate against people with disabilities. Today's topics: assisted suicide bills in United States, and fact safety guards fail psychological evaluation. So Amy Asbrook will talk about it.
Okay, great. Assisted suicide bills in the United States. Bills related to assisted suicide were introduced this year or carried over from the last legislative session in 25 U.S. states. So that's half of the states. And again, this is every year the Compassion and Choices, which is the former Hemlock Society, pushes this.
Yeah, for most states, year after year, they introduce a new bill, or the bill who was defeated the year before.
Right, exactly. Either the bill was defeated or it went to committee and it was buried or whatever. So they just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it.
Yeah.
Most of the bills would legalize assisted suicide for people diagnosed with 6 months to live or less. A few measures stand out for their different effects. And a couple of examples: Arizona's legislature passed and its governor signed a bill, SB 1439, that will protect doctors' conscience rights to refuse to perform assisted suicide should the practice ever become legal in that state. So it isn't legal now, and it's just in case it ever becomes legal that doctors could refuse to perform assisted suicide. And a bill to legalize assisted suicide in Arizona, HB 2336, is unlikely to advance. So I think it's in committee and it's not likely to go anywhere. Another example of a bill that isn't quite, it isn't just an assisted suicide bill, is in Oregon. Senate Bill 893 would expand the current law to allow euthanasia by advance directive.
Yeah, those laws, when they are accepted, voted, always have tendency to expand and expand and expand.
Right.
When you open the box, you could not close it easily.
Right. You never see laws that tighten up the well, almost never see laws that tighten up the
it's looked like a Japanese packing of a box. You open it and you are never able to get it back in the box. It's very difficult.
Right. The bill is currently pending in the Senate Healthcare Committee. So that's the one in Oregon. In Alaska, House Bill 54 was heard by the House Health and Social Services Committee on April 6th. Marilyn Golden from the Disability Rights, Education, and Defense Fund testified via video conference, as did J.J. Hansen of the Patients' Rights Action Fund. Observers believe that the bill is unlikely to progress. So they had a hearing and those people testified and they don't think the bill is going to go any further than that.
That's a good news.
Yeah. In Nevada, a hearing before the Senate Health and Human Services Committee on Senate Bill 261, scheduled for April 12th, was postponed for a second time by the bill's sponsor.
This is a difficult situation.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder what they're thinking. This puts an additional burden on those who would testify against the bill to rearrange schedules and transportation to attend the postponed hearings.
Yeah, the difficulty is when you're handicapped, the transportation is very difficult and need a lot of planification.
Right.
So if you postpone any kind of meeting, what arrives, it's you have less and less people disabled because it needs a very high level of motivation to go against those difficulties.
Right, exactly. And it's very disruptive to the people who are trying to get to testify.
Yeah.
And also Carson City, the capital of Nevada, is not a very big town. So there's not a lot of transportation. The state of Maine has two virtually identical bills, which were heard on April 5th by the Joint Health and Human Services Committee. The bills are expected to be taken up at a work session of the committee on April 19th. So there weren't many people opposed at the hearings, but they're going to take it up at the work session on the 19th. In Hawaii, Senate Bill 1129 was approved by the Senate, by a vote of 22-3, but the House Committee on Health deferred action on the bill, making it unlikely that it will come to a vote. So it passed the Senate, but it doesn't look like the House is going to vote on it.
So it was dark.
Right. That's what we're hoping. A bill in New York, Assembly 02383 and Senate 03151, was reintroduced this year after being approved by the Assembly's Health Committee by a vote of 14-11. This year's bills have once again been referred to the Health Committee. So they were approved last year, and then they're reintroduced and they were sent back to the Health Committee. So it's likely that the Health Committee is going to approve it again, and then we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
it has to be scheduled and it has to go through the hearing process again. So,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in New York. There's a lot of activity opposing assisted suicide in New York. That's where Not Dead Yet is based. So they should have a lot of people testifying. The New Jersey bill, A2451 and S2474, is a holdover from 2016, where it passed the Assembly on October 20th by a vote of 41-28 with 5 abstentions, and was also approved by a Senate Health, Human Services, and Senior Citizens Committee on November 3rd. So it got through the House, and then it went through the Senate committee, but it didn't go to a full vote on the Senate floor.
Yeah.
So if it gets taken up again, that's where it's going to start.
Okay.
So that's kind of bad news, because it looks like that could pass, but we don't know.
We don't.
Bills have been introduced and referred to committee in the following states: Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. So that means the bill was introduced and was sent right to a committee, but there hasn't been hearings scheduled for the bill in the committee.
In the Massachusetts, a few years ago, we participated to a referendum.
Right.
It was beaten.
Yeah.
And choosing to go to introduce a law every year, have something fishy about it.
Right.
Okay. It should be somewhere a kind of rule saying, okay, every 5 years you could, or every 10 years, I don't know. But every year, it's so painful that at the end you wish, okay, stop to sit, we are tired, do it, okay?
Right.
So it's not a good way to pass a law.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so in Massachusetts in 2012, a referendum question was defeated that would have allowed assisted suicide. So the voters spoke and they said no.
But the year after, they reintroduced a new bill.
Exactly. Every year after that. Assisted suicide bills appear to be dead in other states, including Connecticut, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, New Mexico, Tennessee, Utah, and Wyoming.
10 or 11
Other states,
other states will just stop this law.
Right.
It's a good way to
It's either stuck in committee and it's not going anywhere, or it was defeated. So, you know, the people who talk about how great assisted suicide is and how everybody loves it, you know, they've only got 6 jurisdictions in the United States where it's legal. And all of those other places, it was,
And even when it's applied, it's not all going well.
Right.
There is some trouble about those things.
right. There are complications, and there are other things that people don't talk about, but there are problems.
Yeah.
And I wanted to thank Stephen Mendelson of Second Thoughts Connecticut for some of the information that was used in this report.
We normally said, and we try to do as most as possible, all that we say are it could be traceable.
Right.
Okay, so if you have some doubt about what we said, just follow what we had said,
Right.
and follow
We don't have any links, but
Yeah.
you can write us for
Trace
more
it.
information.
Trace it this far.
Right. Okay, the next section is our frequently asked questions section, and we're talking about how different kinds of safeguards fail. And this week we're talking about how psychological evaluations aren't effective in protecting people. First of all, because they're not usually required. They're not required in Oregon. In Belgium, they're only required if the person does not have a terminal illness, and they're very rarely used.
Yeah, but what happened with general medicine doctor?
Right.
He doesn't have any knowledge about psychological
right.
things.
Yeah, psychological things.
Or even social things.
Right, exactly. And, you know, it's up to the family doctor is supposed to diagnose whether somebody's depressed. And if they've just got a diagnosis of a terminal illness, then probably they're going to be depressed. But regardless of that, it's very rarely used. Also, mental health workers have the same prejudice and biases about life with a disability as medical doctors.
Yeah, any population have plus or minus the same bias that other group of population if the group is large enough.
Right. And it's a very, there's a lot of people who believe that it's better to be dead than disabled, and that view is shared by mental health professionals as well. They tend to underestimate the quality of life of people with disabilities, and therefore assume that a suicide request by a disabled person is by definition rational. And that's the difference between when a non-disabled person expresses suicidal feelings. That person will be prevented from, you know, committing suicide and may even be detained against their will in a psychiatric hospital to protect them.
But from handicapped people, visible handicapped people are encouraged to kill themselves.
Right, exactly. When a disabled person says they want to die, that desire is seen as a rational desire just because they're disabled.
Yeah.
The opinion that the mental health worker makes is based only on a short visit and the notes and opinions of the referring doctor. The psychologist or psychiatrist doesn't have enough information to make a clear and complete evaluation. So these aren't people who have ongoing relationships with the person who they're trying to diagnose. They have a couple of sessions with the person maximum, and they need to determine whether the person has a mental illness or whether they have, you know, might be having a drug reaction that's causing them depression.
Yeah.
Whether
they doesn't know the people for long enough or well enough. They doesn't have the tools to evaluate them, but they have the power over their life or death.
Right, and anybody can, you know, anybody can fake it for an hour.
When you are depressed, you do something very not there is desirable.
Right. Right. Okay. Let's see. Mental health professionals don't know about community supports and services that can help people live independently. So one of the things we've talked about before is that most people who ask for assisted suicide do so because they're losing their independence and don't feel they have control in their lives. And there are lots of options for living independently, but if the mental health practitioner doesn't know about those options, all they're going to see is that the person is being forced into a nursing home, and that will diminish the person's quality of life if they want to continue to live independently. So
that's one way to diminish the quality of life of people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, those houses are sometimes good for some people, but not for all.
Right.
It's like the army. Some people feel good about being in the army, but others don't feel good at all.
Right, exactly. Also, these psychiatric evaluations are done to determine if the person is competent, rather than evaluating if the person is depressed or has a mental illness susceptible to treatment, or if his state of mind could be changed from wanting to die. So what they're trying to do is decide if the person is capable of making a decision, rather than deciding if the person could be treated for depression or could have their mind changed, if they could come into a different frame of mind. Because if you're treating somebody for depression or for suicidal behavior, you're trying to change their orientation. But if you're just trying to see if somebody can make a decision, that's a very different evaluation process.
Yeah, even people with very deep depression have the capacity of taking some decision.
Right. Being able to make a decision doesn't mean that the decision is not influenced or, very marked by depression. And I know for me, because I have very severe depression, that when my depression is strong, it changes the way I think.
And it changes your capacity of taking decisions only over certain subjects. For all other subjects, you still have a perfect rate of decision.
Right, exactly. And finally, in Oregon, doctors rarely ask for a psychological consultation. Only 5 people, or 3.8% in 2016, were given a psychological evaluation to check for mental health problems that might cause suicidal feelings. Now, if we assume that, if somebody's just had a 6-month prognosis and they are going through the regular stages of grief, one of which is depression, then pretty much everybody should, be presenting some symptoms of depression. But if only 3.8% are being evaluated by a psychologist, that's not enough. Nor do they consult with a social worker who could help put home and community-based services or peer counseling in place to deal with these feelings. So it's not just that, the person isn't getting mental health support. They're not getting the support they need to take control of their life. If they've become disabled and are feeling like they're going to be pushed into a nursing home, they don't get help to find options to live in the community. And that's another problem.
Yeah.
So, okay. If you want more information about the subjects we talk about here, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujourvivant, not dead yet. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can send us an email at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping out, and thanks to you for being there.
Thank you, Amy.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.